What's up everybody, this is Danny and Happy New Year. This is the first video of the year and we're going to start it off with a bang. This is the new Samsung Galaxy S21 FE or Fan Edition. It's finally here, so let's unbox it and compare it to the Galaxy S21 to find out which one you should pick up, since you can always pick up the older S21 for a good deal. But I'll make sure to link both of those in the description so you can check current pricing to see which one is the better deal. So if you're a fan of unboxings, here we go, and I personally love the white and the olive, so let me know which color is your favorite. What I do love about the box design is that there are icons all over the box. They are subtle, but it's a nice touch, and it makes it a little bit different. The color that I have here is the matte black color, which I can't hate on because that's a color that most phones look fantastic in, so we'll set that to the side and see what else comes in the box. There's no charger here at all, but you know this is just the way it is now. We don't have to like it, but we have to accept it. You just get a USB-C cable and some skinny bathroom reading, and that's about it. I've been using this for about 3 days now, and I'm really digging the design. It has metal rails on the side, so it feels solid. You still get that matte plastic back that feels similar to glass. It feels a little light in comparison to the flagships, obviously, but if I'm going to keep it 100% real, that slight curvature on the back of the S21 made it feel a little bit more premium, but in the end, you're probably going to just put a case on it anyways. But I think some of you will actually prefer this boxier look. It feels so thin in the hand, but it still has that 4,500 milliamp hour battery, which is great. And so far, the battery life has been solid. I haven't been able to kill it in a day, but I'll let you know if that changes through the updated review after I use it for at least a couple of weeks. The design looks very much like an S21, but it's slightly updated with a sleeker design. The buttons are all on the right side, but here you can see the difference with that curve on the S21. Also a space for the 5G antenna there, as you can see on the S21 FE. On the opposite side, another large placement for the 5G reception. The ports, the SIM card tray, and the speaker setup, all the same on both of them. And on the top, there's an extra microphone, it looks like, on the S21, but very subtle differences. The S21 FE has a 6.4-inch Full HD Plus Dynamic AMOLED 2X display with a 120Hz refresh rate, which is slightly smaller than the S20 FE 6.5-inch display with the same resolution, and bigger than the 6.2-inch display on the Galaxy S21. The display is really nice on this. It's vibrant, it's colorful, it's bright, so I don't think you'll be disappointed with it at all. Plus, it has 240Hz touch sampling in game mode, so it's nice and responsive. The dual speakers also sound pretty good, so it's a good multimedia experience overall. And you get the very capable Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 processor that is in the Galaxy S21, so that is nice. Plenty of power here, and you still get that optical in-display fingerprint scanner as well, and it works exactly like you would expect it to. Spec-wise, it's exactly what you'd expect from a modern phone. IP68 water resistance, 15-watt wireless charging with reverse wireless charging, 25-watt wire charging with a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, just like the S20 FE, but noticeably larger than the S21 with this 4,000 milliamp hour battery. So that is something to consider if you're in between buying these two. The camera on paper seems to be the exact same setup as the S20 FE, a 12 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide with a 123-degree field of view, 12 megapixel f1.8 main sensor, and a 8 megapixel 2.4 telephoto with 3x optical zoom and up to 30x space zoom. And it also has that 32 megapixel f2.2 selfie camera with an 81-degree field of view. The main difference in camera from the S21 to the S21 FE is the telephoto. The S21 used a 64 megapixel sensor to digitally crop in for that 3x, so I'll make sure that I'll give you those samples later on in the video. And also the selfie camera on the S21 is 10 megapixels, but it is a larger sensor, so it should perform better in low light, so I'll make sure I test that out as well. The S21 FE will retail for $699 starting on January 11th, and there'll be two versions. One with 6 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, and one with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. So let me know if this is something that you're interested in. Is the pricing right on this one? Did Samsung do the right thing? Or you think it should have been a little cheaper? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm curious. The software experience is also nice. It's up to date with Android 12 and One UI 4 pre-installed. I like the way that it looks overall. It's not drastically different, but the color theming is nicer, and the overall phone seems very responsive, even with just 6 gigabytes of RAM. So make sure you stay tuned for the full review. So what I did to give you just a little bit more is I took the S21 FE and I took it out with the S21 to do a camera comparison, because I just wanted to see if there's a major difference that you need to know about, especially if you're in between buying these two because they're about the same price. So let's go ahead and jump right into the camera results. First, let's start with the daytime photos. All of these were taken on auto mode with Scene Optimizer off, so it would be fair. And unless you nitpick, there isn't a drastic difference between them as you would expect. They really do go back and forth, and sometimes the sky rendition is slightly different on the S21. Usually the S21 has the brighter shot with brighter highlights, but this could just be the differences in the processing with more updated software on the S21 FE. You can see this better highlight control on this plant arrangement, but it really does go back and forth like this wide angle Christmas tree shot. It's totally backwards, so I really wouldn't worry about this. The S21 FE also needs a little tuning when it comes to the auto HDR sometimes. It just doesn't kick on, so I'm sure that this will get better with software updates down the line. The physical difference I wanted to try out was the 3x optical zoom and the portrait mode shots. This is where I feel like the S21 FE has an advantage. With real 3x zoom, the portrait shots look so much better. It's just a better focal length in my opinion. You get a richer depth of field from the focal length, which I'm a fan of. And even during the day, you get a better portrait mode shot overall with more detail. So this is something that you need to consider. Even with regular 3x photos, you can tell the difference. When you punch in, you can see that the water tower text is sharper on the FE with less of a digital look since it's not cropping into the main sensor. You can see this easier when you punch in 1000% crop. If you don't care about the fine details, then it's totally fine, so I wouldn't worry about it. But here's a great example. The bricks on the building look so digital on the S21, where it looks so much better on the S21 FE, and it has less noise with more detail. So basically every shot that I took, I noticed the exact same thing. So if you need better zoom shots, then you need to go with the S21 FE. And if you go beyond the 3x zoom, then you will see a major difference. On the 3x zoom, it's not as noticeable, but when you really start to see it is when you go to the 10x, the FE retains so much more detail, especially right here. And on the 30x, my goodness, it's not even fair. So when it comes to this space zoom, the S21 FE wins hands down. The selfies during the day, they are both good in terms of detail, but I do like the skin rendition better on the S21 FE. These are both on the natural selfie mode. Even portrait mode looks smoother and the white balance improvement is definitely noticeable, so I like what I'm seeing. But besides that, if you shoot primarily during the day, I don't think there's a big enough difference here that you're going to drastically notice. And the 4K video is pretty much identical, so you are going to get very similar results. Sorry about this looking a little choppy. That is because this is a 24 frames per second timeline and this video was shot from the phone at 30 frames per second. So what about low light performance? Is there a drastic difference here? From what I'm seeing, it depends on the scenario, but I'm seeing some improvements. The biggest one is without night mode, just single snap. I see an improvement on noise and overall sharpness. When you crop in, you can see how much more detail is retained on the S21 FE, on the train and on the tree. When you kick in night mode though, they look pretty much identical, so it's nowhere near as drastic. When you punch in, the noise reduction is a little more aggressive on the FE and it's not as over sharpened, so I'm glad to see those processing improvements. But this is what I'm noticing in a lot of the shots. The single snap results are just cleaner with the sacrifice of darker looking shadows, as you can see here. But again, if you use night mode most of the time, then the results are very similar. But the reason I love better single snap performance is because you don't have to wait that 3 or 4 seconds to get that night shot. So I really appreciate this. Again, they do go back and forth, and the S21 sometimes does produce the better looking shots, so variations will be there like any other camera comparison, but overall I thought the newer FE produced more refined photos in my testing. The 3x zoom improvements at night can also be seen. Here is a single snapshot from the main sensor, and here is the 3x. This is a huge difference when you aren't using night mode, so much better on the detail on the S21 FE. But I don't want to be misleading. That doesn't happen in every shot. That was the best case scenario. Sometimes the differences are more subtle, like in this shot. When you punch in, you can see that the bricks are sharper and just the overall picture is a little bit clearer. But results will vary depending on how much light is available. When you crop into this one, it doesn't look too different. But again, if you use night mode most of the time, you aren't going to notice much of a difference. I did notice that the FE exposes for a second or so less than the S21, so I was getting shorter exposure times, so keep that in mind. When it comes to selfies at night, I expected a bigger difference. Maybe there's slightly less skin smoothing on the FE, but they look very similar. When you kick in night mode, both are very detailed and look so much better, so let me know which one that you like better. Here is a shot with the bin mode on the S21 FE with the 32 megapixel turned off, and then here it is with the 32 megapixel turned on. Slight improvement, but not drastic. And here is the night mode shot. Not a huge difference here either, but there is nicer natural depth of field on the FE with more pleasing skin tones. Same here on the portrait mode selfie. Skin tone is nicer with a little more detail, but it decided that I didn't need a left ear, so I'm not sure what happened there. When it comes to video, I'm noticing that the S21 FE tends to create a brighter overall video with a little more shadow detail, but if you look at the S21, it retains more of the detail on the bricks, and while it has more contrast, I actually prefer that look. The FE looks a little muddier overall, so I hope to see an improvement in future software updates. The result is the same with wide angle video. The two people walking are so much sharper, and then here is a transition into the main sensor, and these two look very similar. A little more contrast again and sharpness from the S21, and then here's a transition into the 3X. And besides the brighter video and increased ISO on the S21 FE, it introduces more noise, so this is definitely going to be personal preference. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So with this breakdown, you should have a good idea which camera is better for you. So hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for a lot more videos like this one. And please watch some of the other camera comparisons that I've done in the past. I think you'll dig them. Stay tuned for the Pixel 6 versus S21 FE video coming up next, and I will see you in the next one.